Good morning, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for calling in to this first Garage series of 2021. I'll start with just a short introduction as to myself. My name is Chris Aaron, and I work in the SAP Go-to-Market team for Business Technology Platform, based in Denver, Colorado. And the goal of this series is to provide you with an opportunity each month to essentially hear from subject matter experts that have built a mission on our SAP Discovery Center. So every month we want to bring you these experts who will have a formal overview of the mission, and we want it to be interactive. So there'll be the chat will be moderated throughout the session today, and we'll also look to have a Q&A session each month. So for those of you that may not be familiar with the Garage series, there's the registration link that you must have registered for today's event, and when we're finished with today's session, we will we'll publish a registration page for the next event, which will be on June 9th, where we'll be talking about getting started with a global account. And so we'll have subject matter experts available for that session. And then, as Taurus mentioned, we're interested in your feedback as to what areas of Business Technology Platform would you like featured, which missions can we showcase, and we'll look to schedule those in July and moving forward. In terms of today's presentation, Taurus has set up a Jam site that you're welcome to join. So this will be where we post today's content. And then as we do the missions, the webinars each month, this is where we'll be posting the content. In terms of the Discovery Center, we encourage you to pull this up if you have a connection to the internet. You can see the URL at the top there. You can also Google SAP Discovery Center and it will come up. And you can see here that the main structure is around missions and services. So our speakers today, Wolfgang and Sangeetha, will be talking about one of these missions. So obviously I've pulled that up just so that it's available to show here. So today we'll be talking about extending SAP ERP 6.0 business processes using SAP BTP. And as you can see, each mission, like this one, has an overview as to what's involved. You can see there's a high-level diagram that displays, in this case, the on-premise assets, the cloud elements, the security, the connectivity, right? So it's sort of an end-to-end use case. In terms of each mission, you'll see that there are these topics, these cards that you go through. So you're able to sort of discover the mission, find out what's involved, how to set up the mission on your BTP account. And so this is sort of what we'll be walking through today. Obviously, we only have about an hour, so with the Q&A session at the end, we're just going to highlight for you some of the key aspects, but not go through every piece of this mission. But the idea is that you're able to follow along or to be inspired by today's speakers to look at this mission in more detail. There were some questions on the Asia session earlier today about the commercial side of things. So the Discovery Center, the mission aspects are complementary, but you may need the underlying licenses for Business Technology Platform, or in this case, ERP. So the Discovery Center is completely complementary, and the idea is that this gives you step-by-step guidance. And on today's Garage session, we're going to look to give you a little bit more specifics in terms of what's involved. And there is a support tab. So if you start this mission and you reach a stopping point, you can see here that Wolfgang and Andreas are listed as the experts for this mission. So it's great that on today's session we've got Wolfgang to talk, and that'll give you some sort of confirmation as to the experts that are available to you that support these respective missions. So as we sort of transition into today's session, I wanted to bring in Sangeetha and Wolfgang. Do you mind saying hello? And Sangeetha, maybe you go first, and then Wolfgang, you can follow up with an introduction.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to our session. So I'm working in the BTP end-to-end scenario enablement team. So I joined SAP some 16 years ago and have worked in different units like landscape virtualization management or NetWeaver teams and the classic cloud platform, now the BTP. So we are in a team where we look into end-to-end customer relevant scenarios, and then we produce the content and have rollout to customers and partners.
Welcome.
Yes, welcome everybody. My name is Wolfgang Scheer. I'm also part of the same team as Sangeetha. And I was starting working mainly on the mobile technology when I joined SAP a couple of years ago. And as the mobile platform itself was one of the first services moving to the cloud, and mobile itself, was already end-to-end story or end-to-end scenario for building those kind of solutions. I was then moving in this BTP core end-to-end scenario team. And yes, as Sangeetha said, this is we take a deeper look on this scenario. We look at the gaps which may be not solved by the normal services, and look how we can fill it, for example, by rolling out this kind of missions.
Thank you, Wolfgang. All right, so as we mentioned today, we're going to be covering ERP 6.0 business process extension using BTP. So before Wolfgang gets into the more technical aspects, we thought it'd be great to talk to Sangeetha and just set up today's discussion, set up today's technology. And just confirmation, the next session will be on June 9th. And as soon as this session's over, we'll be posting the registration page.
Okay, thank you, Chris, for setting the stage. Wolfgang, can you please share the screen? Maybe in the meantime, I can give a brief introduction of the business scenario. Wolfgang, I think it's sharing the other screen.
Yeah, the presenter view. Yeah.
It's the wrong side. Sorry.
No problem. So today we'll show you how, as a customer, you would be motivated already to try to develop an extension on BTP. And we would present you different use cases for you. What we show here is a sample. So we want you to use this as a template and then think of multiple possible use cases which you can develop an extension on the cloud platform. Thank you, Wolfgang. Now it's fine. So today we'll show you extending business processes on an SAP ERP 6.0 or an ECC system. But typically, this customer motivation, what you see here, is the common and same for any customer story, be it ECC system, or you have an S4HANA system, or you have an S4HANA cloud system. Typically, as a customer, you want to keep your core clean, but then you want to add a new business process in the middle of your existing SAP business processes. So you can have an extension application running on cloud platform, which would be having this added business logic, but then your core remains clean and not disturbed. So your core is completely decoupled. And even if you have an update on the SAP backend system, your extension application running on BTP is not affected, and it still continues to serve your B2C scenarios or B2B scenarios. So also there could be a case where you have a, like I said, B2C scenario where your consumers don't have a user base or access to your SAP system running behind the firewall, but you still want to provide them with cool new UIs. For example, you want to give them some product discounts. So whenever a new product is being promoted, so you want to do some promotions, or you want to do some discounts, you could have that in your mobile application running on BTP. Or you could also think of scenario where you have a sales order and then you want to add an additional step like a verification check. So whenever a sales order of a particular value is created, then you want to have a check in the BTP extension. And you can also think of integrating a chatbot, for example, for the sales order, and also some analytics based on how many sales orders have been created this month or this year. And you could also think of some financial reports using SAP Analytics Cloud, and you could think of storing your data in SAP HANA Cloud, lying on SAP BTP, and then which can then produce beautiful analytical reports for your financial use cases. So, like I said, today we would show you one sample scenario where you can decouple your core and then still have a cool new application running on BTP. Still, you could integrate it into your central Fiori launchpad and have a faster lifecycle because you have a cloud application, which is quite fast. You can roll it out anytime you want, unlike the updates which you have to plan in an SAP system. So can you go to the next slide, please? Okay, so today we'll show you an software architecture pattern, which is called event-driven architecture. And then you might be wondering, why is this shown already for SAP ECC system? Because maybe you would have thought only up from SAP S4HANA or SAP S4HANA Cloud, there are events which you can create and consume. Yes, that is true. Overall, there you have everything out of the box already prepared by SAP, and you have it already ready-made UIs, which you can just, APIs, which you can just use, and also configure events, which you can just configure in your SAP S4HANA systems and consume in your extension application. But today, we would also like to show you an SAP NetWeaver Event Enablement add-on, which you can install in your existing ECC system. And then you can still do some configurations, which would enable you to already have an event-driven architecture. So an event-driven architecture is an industry-wide standard where you have a producer and a consumer. So producer produces events. Events could be something which is a change of state. And then there could be many consumers who are listening to this change of event and then they react upon it. So in our case, it would be the consumer would be the BTP extension application, which would listen to a queue and then which we would show you later on. You can also try it out. So you can see that whenever there is a change in the ECC system, which you can configure, you can see that there is an event triggered and received by the extension application. Today, we would show a sample scenario where you can see an custom API created in the ECC system and also to configure some topics for the queues, which you would send the messages to. For example, today we are picking up the business partner scenario. So when you create or update a business partner in the ECC system, you would have an event triggered, which would be received by SAP Event Mesh, which is a cloud messaging service running on SAP BTP. So which would receive these events and then store it until the consumer is able to consume the events. So even if you have your cloud application down and comes up again, still there are messages in the queue which you can consume anytime. This way you have really responsive applications which are completely decoupled and really scalable because your core is not affected. even though there are millions of consumers for your extension application, your core digital core remains out of this load on the backend system. So can you please go to the next slide, Wolfgang? Okay, so we want to show this as a migration path to already for an SAP ECC customer before they join the journey of SAP S/4HANA migration. So you can already start using the cool new APIs, which Wolfgang would later show you in the api.sap.com. And then you can use these APIs and create events in your SAP ECC system, and also create an extension application running side by side on SAP BTP. Once you later upgrade your system to S/4HANA, still you would have the same application, which could be used for any backend system. So today we would show you this scenario, but we also have other missions, which you would see it linked in our related section later on. So where we would show you steps where you can see how the steps are varying if you have an SAP S/4HANA system, or if you have an SAP S/4HANA cloud system, still you want to have an extension application. So we'll show you different kind of scenarios for you. Next slide, please. Okay, so what are the highlights for having an event-driven architecture? So like I said, you can think of different industries. For example, in the aerospace industry or in a manufacturing industry, you want to send sensor data, and then you want to, based on this sensor data, plan your performance and plan your optimization of your production plant. You could use this enablement add-on, and you can also think of scenarios like retail, where you would have different promotion codes and discounts, which you want to react based on change in the backend system. And you would also have high throughput of messages, and you can easily configure it, and you would not have any load on your backend system. You can also monitor end-to-end if the messages have reached the queue, which is in the SAP Event Mesh, and you can also see the events in your application. So it's completely secure. It's the end-to-end communication is completely secure, and you have no way that something else is exposed from your SAP backend system. You really configure in the cloud connector what you want to expose, and only that is exposed to the cloud application through cloud connector. So next slide, please, Wolfgang. So today, Wolfgang will present you this business scenario, which we have picked up. We have created a scenario. For example, you have a third-party company who doesn't have any access to your SAP backend system, but he is doing some background checks for your potential customers. So whenever a new business partner or a customer is created in your ECC backend, you have an event enabled, so that for any change or creation event, you receive an event in the Event Mesh, which is the cloud messaging service running on BTP. Once it reaches the queue there, your business partner validation extension application will be notified, and it receives the message, so it can see which business partner is being changed or created, and then it can still do some checks. The third-party company can persist in HANA and do some checks. Once they say, yes, I verify this business partner, you can see that you have an OData call going back to the backend, where you can do a write back on the SAP backend system. So with this OData, you can also do a read of all the business partners which are existing, or the new business partner. You can also do a write back. So it depends on how you configure. Now I hand over to Wolfgang to show you the demo, and we would also support you later in the end with questions.
Okay, thank you, Sangeetha. So I just want to take a deeper look on our mission. As Chris already mentioned, we have a mission, and this mission has this project board, and specific for our mission, we have It has, I will say, four phases of this mission. The first is it's called a discover phase. Here you find all the relevant documentation to create and understand the mission. So we have all the links to the relevant services, documentation of the services. We have some links about what is about general concept about business events and event-driven architectures. We have some links about how to build data services on the SAP Gateway Service Builder, and also then a few description of the cloud application programming model that we used for the implementation of the extension application. And last but not least, as we store data on the cloud side, we also use the SAP HANA Cloud Database. And here also you find the necessary descriptions and tutorial help files how this is working. For the next phase would be a kind of setup phase of our landscape. I don't want to go much in detail. I'll just say the main steps. What you have to do first is you have to figure out which prerequisites you need to run these kind of services. So which services are needed on the BTP, which additional tools you need, for example, Cloud Connector to connect your backend system, and so on. Then we have an option. If you don't have an ECC system by yourself, you can use the SAP Cloud Appliance Library images, which could be run either on AWS or Azure. And then the next step is then when you have your ERP or ECC system ready, that you need to install this SAP NetViewer add-on for event enablement. So we go through those steps, how to do that. Next step is then you have to do some additional configuration on your backend system to make it ready for the connection to the cloud platform. The next step is then to set up your BTP account. In that case, we use a tool called Booster. With this Booster, it's a kind of automatic setup of your account. You just have to select services you need for your extension, and then just enter the relevant users. And then with that, the setup is done. So we don't have to do it each step manually. And last but not least would be then to create a connectivity between your ERP system and the SAP BTP. This is more or less the setup step. With that, I think this is more or less common for each extension scenario. So you could also most of that step reuse for other scenarios. If, for example, if you just want to extend an OData service or something like that, or expose an OData service to the cloud platform, this is also you can also use these kind of setups. Now for the implementation, I just want to go a little bit more in detail. Here we have, I would say, three major steps. What we do, the first is, as Sangeetha already mentioned, we want to create an application which could then later be used, also be used by an SAP S4 system. So in that, therefore, we start building or using the S4 API as a template, and I should just show how you can do that. So you find all the relevant SAP APIs on the API Business Hub. It's the URL is api.sap.com, and then as we said, we want to move to S4HANA. So we take a look at the S4HANA data APIs, and therefore we search for a business partner. And here we find the business partner or data API. And what we can do now is that we can use this API as a template for our implementation on the ERP system. So what you can do here is just download the API specification from here, And then we will, in the next step, we will then go to the ECC system and upload the specification. So this is mainly here, the parts what we have to do here. We can also take a look at this APIs more in detail if you like. So this is, and I also make tests and so on. So this is a very nice tool to get an overlook about all the relevant APIs for SAP systems. So next step, we will now go to our ECC system. Just one. So the first step, as I already mentioned, is then we have to build. This is the difference. We have the main difference to an S4 system, because in the ERP ECC system we don't have these APIs yet. So we have to do the implementation by ourselves. So the first step is to start the implementation and go to the Gateway Service Builder. And here what you do is, the next step what to do is you create a new service. In that case, I've already done it. This is it's called SAP API Business Partner. And what you can do now is you can go to the data model of this new service and then say just import. And what you can do now is to import the data model from a file. That's just the data model we have downloaded from the API Business. From the API Business Hub. With that, the model is generated, and you find all the same entity types as for the S4 API. So we have all the same entity types, same entity sets, and so on. With that, you activate this new service, and with the activation, the runtime artifacts are generated. And you are now ready to start your implementation. We start with the external implementation. We go to the ABAP workbench. So in the ABAP workbench now we see that we see all the methods that are relevant for this API. For normal extensions in DAR, you don't need all those methods. So and therefore you don't have to implement only those methods you will need for your extension. In our case, we just used six methods. Sorry, that's the we want to get an entity. We want to get an entity set of a business partner. And also we want to get an entity set of the business partner address. And for both, we wanted to run updates. So this is the only implementation we have to do for our scenario. And here, just for example, if you want to get an entity set of address, for example, here we use an existing BAPI, BUS is 1006 in our case, and we expose only those fields that are relevant for our extension application. So you don't have to expose all the fields, not only the fields you want to use with your extension, and that's more or less the implementation. And that you do for all the services you need. That's will be this step. With that, we are now ready with this. When this implementation is done, we are now ready to do the setup for the messaging. Here we go back to another to the S Pro transaction. Go to the open this IMG, implement the implementation guide for components, and then you can take a look at the sub integration with other SAP components, and here then you find the add-on for the event enablement. And for the event enablement, to do the setup itself, is a couple of steps you have to do. I will not show all of them. The first is that you have to create a kind of trust to the BTP, especially to the Event Mesh service. This is done via certificate exchange. So you download a certificate from the BTP platform and then just use this as trust transaction and then create a trust to the system. This is one step. The next step is that you have to create some communication objects that are necessary. This is just a little bit a click and typing and nothing special. I just want to go to the more important part for the eventing. So this is the connection customizing file transfer. Here we define which events we want to roll out to our scenario. So we have a different kind of outbound objects. And therefore we have said, okay, we have two replication objects that's business partner change and business partner created. And when I go maybe in detail for this business partner created, you can see on the first step, this is instance. We have created a kind of cloud instance, which is also our communication to the BTP platform, communication instance. And then we have created these two methods type, create and change. And when we now take a look at the header attributes of this methods type, the important, interesting part is the methods. So this is the HTTP method, which is used for sending. So we use the post method, and the content type is a JSON file, which is sent to the event mesh. And the interesting part is here is this topic. So this is the topic which we use for the communication. So we will also later see it when I show this on the implementation part in the BTP. The same we do it for the change event, more or less, and that's here the configuration. The last step what you have to do on the ECC platform is to map these I will say these attributes to an, sorry, that's the wrong, to map these attributes to an event on the business object side. So so next type that we have this event link type linkage. So we link the event of the business object to our event that we want to send to the event mesh. In our case, as I already said in the implementation, we use this BUS 1006 object, and here we have done a mapping from when every time a change event happens, then this is the receiver type is then mapped to this, as I said already, to this ACI message change receiver. And with that, every time a change happens on the business object, an event is triggered. The same is for the created event. So this is more or less the configuration on the ECC side. And we are now ready to start with the implementation on the cloud, on the BTP. As I already said, for the implementation part, we used the cloud application programming model. For those who not confirm or don't know this cloud application programming model, this consists in general of a service and an app and a database part. And for the database, as I said already, we use the S4HANA, the HANA cloud database. And for the implementation itself, we use Node.js. And one important thing that is that you import now the EDMX again here. So this is the mapping between our application and the API of the ECC, what we have created in the ECC, so that the CAP application also knows the structure of the APIs. So this is more or less then the mapping to the APIs. And the communication itself is done via messaging for getting changes. So we have these two messaging methods. One is for the created, and here you see that they are listening to the same topics as what I have shown before. So this is the same topic. Also, and when, for example, here when a created event happens, then there's a check of what if there is which data is in the message. If this and then they in general in for our setup in the message cell itself is only the ID of the business object, or in that case for the business partner, and then the service itself will then will make a call to the ECC system for the specific business partner and get all the data. So this is more or less the workflow, or the flow, how it works. And the same for the messaging. You get a change event, and then makes an additional loads the data then from the backend system. When we make a deployment to the when we deploy this application to the BTP platform, automatically the event mesh service is configured. So here in the event mesh service itself, you don't have to do any configurations. It's done automatically by the deployment. And here again, when we take a look at our queues, oops, sorry. Have to reload. When we take a look at our queues, we see that we have again these two subscription, and that's two subscription the event mesh is listening to. Sorry, not subscription, sorry, topics the event mesh is listening to. So that's more or less the implementation part. And now I can show just a demo how this will look like. So when I go back into our ECC system, and then we create, for example, we create a new business partner. I go to the business partner transaction and say, okay, I want to create a new person. Example. Just example, it's located in the US, and for our business case, what we have said, we want to have a kind of pre-check or check of new business partner. So therefore, we set the status of the business partner to central block. That means the business partner must first be validated until it could be used. For example, if this business partner wants to buy something for us, we will first have this background check of the business partner. If he's soluble or something like that. Yeah. So we just changed the business partner. So this is done. And with the change of the business partner, the first create event is triggered, and we can check this event. And we go to the transaction SLG1. And I can just take a look at what I have seen, what I have shown is this object ID, and we can just search for this. And then you will see, okay, this is the time at the moment, and we are seeing that this new business partner was created. When we now start our application on the BTP side, again, there's always this refreshing problem. Sorry for that. So we should now find here Mrs. Anna Smith. She is new, and what we can do now, we can edit this new business partner and, for example, say, okay, the postal code may be incorrect, we want to change it. And then we can also say, okay, now this business partner is verified, and we change the status to verified, and then click on save. With that, the business partner is sent back. These changes now sent back to the ECC system. And here again, when we go to this ECC system, back, search again, we now see that an additional event is triggered. Now this business partner change event is triggered. And with that, at the moment here, you see that the business under Smith, we have set it to verified. And with these, and then send it back to the ECC system. And the ECC system says, okay, send this event back that he has that he got these changes. And now with that, the extension application got the changes and say now everything is completed. This business partner is now the check has been done. So with that, that's a story about our mission scenario.
Thank you, Wolfgang. That was very smooth. So
yeah,
thank you.
And I have to hurry. This is always a little problem.
Okay, so just to recap, right? That was Wolfgang went through a lot of the highlights there. Yeah, the mission is available for you to follow along at your own time and do all the steps. Sangeetha, I saw you were active in the chat box, and I thought it might make sense just to cover some of the questions that came up. So first of all, you showed the business partner scenario today, Wolfgang. How would those listening find out all the objects that are supported?
Yeah, that's a little bit the problem. You need to be I think if you know your system, if you're a senior ABAP developer, I think you know how to find this. Otherwise, you can take a look at an S4 system and see which object they use for the APIs.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question around, obviously we're showing ERP today, and you showed the API hub and starting with S4 APIs. Would that be the recommendation to look at the S4 APIs to future-proof these modifications, or?
It depends. I think it really depends on the business case. If you say, okay, this is too complex, maybe it's easier to create a custom data service, for example. And for example, especially if you want to use data from different UPAs, maybe this could be easier or simpler. I just want to show the showcase here is that if you think about to move later to an S4 system, you will save some time in the implementation for the extension application. So here, with that, by using the APIs, we can just exchange the backend system and without minimal changes on the extension application. The only thing what you have to change is the URL, because this is different, because for APIs we have this API underscore blah blah blah, and for ECC extension this is then or ECC custom object is starting with a set. That's the only difference, and that's more or less then the only thing you have to do. So it really depends on your business case and what you plan.
Okay, and I know you mentioned briefly boosters, and I saw there was a question in the chat around boosters. Do you mind expanding on how the boosters help with this mission?
Yeah, I can just show it if
okay.
it's like. So we have these boosters on the accounts, and for this mission we use the booster for developing extension application. And you see here there's a lot of additional components you can use. You don't have to use all of those components, but it just helps you for set up your development account. So when you start this booster, there's a pre-processing done. So it's always checked that you have the relevant entitlements. For example, I don't have an entitlement for this application autoscaler, so I would not be able to install this, but as I don't want to use it, it's fine for me. Next step is then that you get all the list of the services, and here you see which are the relevant services that you will need. This is this event mesh. There's in two flavors which will be needed here. Then we have this business application studio as for development, and we have the S4HANA container, schema and HDI container. So there's more or less that we need for the setup, and you can then use all the other services if you need them or not. So you can, if you don't need them, you can just delete them, and then then you can set up your account, choose your sub account name. You can choose the relevant provider which you want to use, some Amazon Web Service. Choose the region where you want to install this. Given the subdomain, you can set up the org and also the default space name. And with that, next is then you can add all the users, the administrators and developers for your sub account, and that's more or less is it. So then we just click to next and to finish, and then the booster will be installed. And with that, all the settings, the role settings, and so on for all the services are done automatically, and you don't have to do any manual operations anymore. And you can then just start with your implementation.
Okay, and I saw some questions about, could you do this mission using a trial account? And I saw somebody.
I don't think so. No, yeah, it should be work because the Cloud Event Mesh is now available for trial. For also, we haven't tried it out, so I can't say it's work or not. No.
There is also a question in the chat asking, I only have few boosters in my trial account. Do I need to activate something to see the booster, what Wolfgang is demonstrating?
On trial, the booster is not available. This is the first thing. So on trial, this booster is not available. It's only for productive environments.
But still, you can manually assign or check these services. So a booster is normally an automation done for you as a customer to create your sub account, the necessary services, which you can do also manually.
Wolfgang, I've got a question. Is it possible to do a filtering in the event mesh that you, for example, send?
There's also a question asked by Green about potential license implications. So for you to try out the mission is completely free of cost. So you can start the mission, see the project board, and check the step-by-step contents which is linked in each project tile to a GitHub. It's completely free of cost. Now Wolfgang will show you the estimate, which is also linked in the mission board. So only if you start a service or run a service, then it costs money. You can also change and adapt, saying, I don't want to use HANA Cloud, but I want to do something else, or I just want to see the app. You can mix and match yourself depending on which service you want to try out.
Yeah, in that case, the minimal cost would be €39 per month 93. At the moment. Mm-hmm. But I think you have to add additional license for the cloud. This is missing. For the Cloud Foundry runtime, you need also free Cloud Foundry runtimes.
Mm-hmm. And here we haven't included the costs of the SAP NetWeaver event enablement add-on. Yeah. So this is linked in the mission, and you can check how to install it and what the costs are. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Sangeetha, I see there's like 69 questions. Were there any any questions that we haven't highlighted that you think the audience would want to hear about?
I mean, I saw a few replies saying they really like the scenario. Some have also tried out the similar approach with their system. So glad to hear about that. And one person has also commented about using success factors for such scenarios and different APIs. And there were questions about is cloud connector needed for this scenario? Yes, you need a cloud connector because your system is SAP system is running behind the firewall. You need the cloud connector to expose your API and data to the cloud application. So that was one interesting.
It depends how you set up. You can also use, if you don't like to use a cloud connector, you can use a reverse proxy, but in general, cloud connector is more secure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I saw there was a recent question about, can Event Mesh do filtering on the type of business partner? Is there any additional logic Event Mesh can handle?
No, Event Mesh itself, nothing. There's no logic in Event Mesh. Event Mesh is just exchanging the messages. This is all for events.
It's just like a storage to receive your events. So it depends on the producer. So how you write the producer to do the filtering of which events to be sent, it depends upon the producer. And here in ECC, so you do the API implementation. So I think you would have more freedom to decide which business partners changes have to be reaching the event mesh. But if you have an SAP S4HANA or SAP S4HANA cloud system, so you have already the APIs pre-prepared and already available for you in the SAP S4HANA systems. So there, I'm not sure if you can control with some logic saying, I want to see only business partner X, but not partner Y. So this, I'm not sure if you can influence them. Mm-hmm.
Or maybe in the BTP extension itself, right? You could add some logic in terms of.
You can ignore what you can do is you can also send, especially with this ECC, you can also add content to the message. So you can say, okay, this is the reason, for example, why it has changed or something like that. For example, if a field has changed that don't matter, you can ignore then the message.
So if someone has question, they can also raise their hands and also ask in the round if we missed out to answer.
Yeah, Taras, does the audience need to do anything to unmute themselves? Or?
No. For those who want to ask an audio question, you can raise your hand. There's a feature in Zoom that allows you to raise your hand so that you can unmute your line and ask your question. So if there's anybody that has a question they'd like to ask, an audio question, please raise your hand, unmute your line, and ask your question.
Hi all, thank you first of all, and my question is regarding the cloud connector communication. If I have a scenario where I need to call a service from the on-premise S4 to the SAP BTP, can I still use the cloud connector? So the cloud connector could work for communication from on-premise to cloud, or instead I need to on the on-premise system open the endpoint on cloud.
It's possible for both way communication. So if you want to call a service, an BTP service inside of your ECC system, this is also possible. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think that's the end of the questions. Taras, maybe pull up the poll again, just if anybody wants to give us feedback. And as Taras said at the beginning, we would really welcome your input on future sessions. if there are topics that you want to be included in this format, and I'd also welcome your feedback on the presentation style. As we mentioned, there's a jam site where Taras has invited everybody. So that's where we'll post today's presentation. And yeah, we'll be opening the registration for the next session on June 9th. We'll be going through the mission of getting started with BTP, how to set up a global account. So thank you to today's speakers, Wolfgang and Sangeetha. I thought that was great. And Taras, thank you for coordinating this session. And lastly, thanks to the audience. Thank you so much for attending today.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to present our mission. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.